Thank you. Again, I'm not Eric Hallman, but I'm the agriculture and sort of food economic developer for Orange County, sort of an odd position to be in, but I've been in it about 2.5 years. So we've got a number of things going on. It's a hard act to follow Chatham County there, but a lot of things happening. But Eric asked me to come in and stand in for him to talk about PFAP, the Piedmont Food Agricultural Processing Center. It's easier to say PFAP. And this has been around, let's go ahead to the next slide. This has been around now for 4 or 5 years. It started in July 13. Well, actually before that, but it became a standalone nonprofit about that time. It was originally in a collaborative partnership among Alamance, Chatham, Durham, and Orange counties. They raised $1.3 million in grant funding from state and federal agencies. To include Department of Ag, Golden Leaf, Weaver Street, and a number of granting agencies. Okay. So what it is basically, it's an incubator and shared use kitchen. Right now there's probably, I don't know if he has it up there, probably about 50 tenants there, clients. We have caterers, a lot of food trucks. Mostly they're manufacturers. About 2/3 of the people there are actually manufacturing a value-added product or freezing, something on that order. And there are a couple of farmers, and they're from all over the state. We'll see a map there in a second. Eric, in the process of maybe trying to find out who's interested in continuing sort of that collaborative interlocal agreement, ran up sort of the economic impact information, and his numbers show about $2.5 million in retail value created and over 77 full and part-time jobs. Let's go to the next one. So we have clients from all over the area. Obviously, most are clustered around Durham, Orange County area, but we have them far away as Raleigh and all the way up past Winston-Salem into Statesville area. These are historic clients. They've changed, and we probably, over the years, have averaged maybe 30 clients, but it's up to around 50 currently. So it is truly sort of a regional center at this time. And that's part of what I want to talk about in terms of lessons learned. Eric and I are working closely together on trying to approach a number of the adjacent counties to discuss a regional food systems plan. And as we mentioned earlier about the facility here, not every county can have a PFAP. Not every county necessarily needs to have a incubator farm or even an aggregation facility. Right now, talking with Wake County, Triangle J Council of Governments, we'd like to reach out to Chatham and others in the fast-growing Triangle region, which is kind of the market, obviously, for all of this food, but it's supported by a much larger realm of farms and businesses. And we try to stay away from creating sort of counterproductive or overly competitive systems. We're right now looking at the possibility of developing a regional schematic master plan for food systems in the Triangle and the region beyond. As he points out, the food and ag economy is kind of in upheaval for a lot of reasons. How many of you have been to FoodCon before or heard of it? It's put on by the MBA programs at NC State, UNC, and Duke. It started at UNC. I went to the one at Duke for the first time a couple of years ago, and then NC State had it last year. It'll be back at UNC at Keenan Flagler. I think it's the 8th of December, but it's about, they'll bring in 300 or 400 people and a lot of national speakers about food systems and how we're struggling with that. But they had at the Duke, Duke event, they had a couple of vice presidents from ConAgra, which some of you know is probably one of the largest agribusiness companies in the world. And they talked about what they called a disruptive economy, meaning disruptive to them. So many people are more interested in buying local, organic, sustainable food having a story behind it. It's hard for them to sort of back into that. There's a lot of entrepreneurs growing into that. And I was at a conference in Toronto, and they talked about being the missing middle in the food systems. It's, you know, these big guys are trying to back into sort of a hub and spoke kind of model, and the small people are sort of trying to build into it, like Eastern Carolina Organics and others, and some of the actual projects you see here today. So a lot of change is happening, but that means a lot of opportunity, in my view, for being able to feed ourselves a little closer to home. Some of the other lessons that he may not have up here, in the Piedmont it's about a 10,000 square foot building. Obviously, one of the things is we need more space, we need more dry storage space, we need more freezer space. So as you guys probably know, cold chain management is probably one of the things that's in highest demand and in most need for aggregation and distribution. But across the board there's a lot of opportunity for not only food entrepreneurs, but the farmers that support that. What we're trying to do in Orange County is create more and more diverse markets for farmers to include institutional buying. GAP certification is a big issue there. We recently got funding to hold GAP certification and pay for that for our farmers in Orange County this year and possibly next. Just getting food into the schools is more difficult than you think. They have the hoops they have to jump through, but we're working on that as well. How many of you, any of you have GAP certified farmers? They're not a lot, but there's a lot of people wanting to do it. It's just money and time and effort. So we're trying to help facilitate that. Is there another one after that? So basically, this sort of tagline, putting your best food forward. They went through a little branding thing to get rid of the name Piedmont Food Ag Processing Center, but found out that what they came up with after they paid for the website and all the branding and everything turned out to be a company in California. So now they're in negotiations with the graphic people trying to get some of that money back. But so at any rate, Eric's happy to, and I am too, to give tours of the facility. It's right in Hillsboro. We're expanding a little bit into another county building currently for dry storage. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have around PFAP as best I can, not being Eric Hallman. Yes?
How do you secure your funding for different farmers?
Interesting story. Right at the end of the Board of Commissioners year, one of our most supportive board members basically asked about this. We were in process of working on it. So they did a budget amendment right at the very last and said we need $50,000 shifted over to here to do that. And at the very last meeting, all the other commissioners said, okay. So they came to me and said, we have $50,000. Now you got to craft a program around that like today. So we have a very supportive group of commissioners and manager administrative offices in the county. So that helps quite a bit. But what we want to do is the other half of the money was set aside maybe to do sort of funding the differential between what the food would cost through a normal distributor and what it would cost maybe through local folks. And we've got to have GAP certification first, so it's sort of a two-phase project.
Can you identify some of the value-added companies that are producing that facility?
Say again.
Can you identify some of the value-added products?
The one that just left, they have a couple of large anchor tenants. One was Luna Pops. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Oh, okay, yeah. Seal the Seasons is our other big one, which is they are flash freezing North Carolina fruits and vegetables. They have about 4 or 5 products now, and they're in a lot of stores around the state and a nation. They're growing very rapidly, actually. They have an IQF line there, and they're going out beyond that. There's probably a dozen food trucks that you might remember. In the past, there's been Yop and Nello Sauce and Tempeh Girl and a number. Cukes is one that's growing fairly rapidly. It's a new cold processed cucumber processor. We've just had one called Neomega that's doing avocado oils that are infused with various flavorings and herbs and whatnot. So a lot of these things you'll see in the local stores. But it's kind of odd because it's an incubator. You want to get them in, you want to get them out, but getting them in and out causes that line to go black and red and black and red. So.
You identified your position as unique. Could you talk a little bit about that, or are you willing to?
Oh, sure. Yeah, very briefly. They've had it filled before. Some of you know Noah Rennells. Noah was in this position several years ago for about 3 years, I guess. And then it was unfilled for a while. He was in it part-time. And then about 3 years ago, they decided to fund it full-time. My background's in soil science, land planning, environmental consulting, but I work for USDA. In the last 10 years, I've been working kind of in the local ag movement. And we tried to, another couple of folks and I invested in a small farm in Saxby to try to prove some high tunnel greenhouse season extension production and whatnot. So I took a year off, spent a lot of money, didn't make any money. And then we got the farm up and running, hired a farm manager. So I had to kind of go back and make a little money again. And this one came up. And so it's intriguing to me because Orange County is so supportive of it. And it kind of represents the middle ground between economic development in the past has traditionally been, let's get another BMW plant. And agriculture has been like, let's get corn production up to 300 bushel an acre. But this kind of blends the two between, you know, extension work and economic development, because American Planning Association, everybody you talk to, local food and your economic development around food systems is really the thing right now. And I think it has tons of opportunity.
So you're an Orange County employee housed in
Economic Development Office.
economic.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep. Anybody else? All right.
It's gonna be
Thank you.
around.